Imagine, one ordinary morning you wake up rich, respected, surrounded by laughter. By sunset, the same day, every single thing you love is gone. Your money, vapor. Your business, ashes. Your children, all 10 of them, dead. Then, as if heaven itself turned against you, your body breaks out in burning sores from head to toe. You sit in the dirt, scraping your skin with broken pottery, while the people who should have carried you say, "This is your fault. God is punishing you." Even your wife whispers through tears, "Just curse God and die." Would your faith survive that? Could you still call him good when every evidence screamed he had abandoned you?
This is the story of Job. Not a fairy tale, a raw, breathtaking, heart-shattering, true account from the oldest book in the Bible. A story that will wreck your easy answers about suffering and rebuild your faith on something far stronger. Long ago, in the land of Uz, there lived a man whose name became legendary, Job. He wasn't just a good guy. God himself looked down from heaven and bragged about him. "Have you considered my servant Job? There is none like him on the earth, blameless, upright, fears God, and turns away from evil." Job had it all: 7 strong sons, 3 beautiful daughters who adored one another, 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 donkeys, and hundreds of servants who ran his vast estate like a well-oiled machine. But wealth was never his God. Every single morning, before the sun fully rose, Job would rise, build an altar, and offer sacrifices for his children, just in case, in their feasting and laughter, any of them had sinned in their hearts. That was the kind of father he was. Protective, tender, always thinking of others. Yet unseen by human eyes, a conversation was happening in the heavenly courtroom that would change everything. The angels stood before the Lord. Among them walked the accuser, Satan. God turned to him and asked a question that still echoes through history. "Have you considered my servant Job?" Satan's lip curled. "Does Job fear you for nothing? You have built a hedge around him, blessed everything he touches. But stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will curse you to your face." God answered with unshakable confidence in his servant. "Very well, everything he has is in your power, but do not lay a finger on the man himself." And so the storm was unleashed. One day, while Job's children were feasting at the oldest brother's house, 4 messengers arrived, one right after another, each more devastated than the last. The first messenger burst through the gate, his robes torn and dusty, chest heaving from a desperate run across the fields. Sweat and blood streaked his face, and his eyes were wide with terror. He dropped to his knees before Job, gasping for breath as the words tumbled out in a frantic rush. "Master Job, disaster! Oh God, such disaster! The oxen were plowing in the far field, steady and strong as always, the donkeys grazing peacefully beside them, not a care in the world. Then suddenly they came, the Sabians, a raiding band, swift and merciless. Sweeping down from the southern hills like locusts, they surrounded the workers in moments, no warning, no mercy. They seized the oxen, yoked and all, driving them off in a cloud of dust. The donkeys, too, every last one, ropes snapped, beasts stampeding away under whips and shouts.
The servants fought back, brave men who tried to protect what was yours. But the raiders were too many, too fierce. Swords flashed in the sunlight. Blood soaked the earth. They cut them down, one after another, no quarter given. Screams, so many screams. I hid behind a plowshare, praying they wouldn't see me. I'm the only one left. I alone escaped to tell you. Job stood frozen, the color draining. From his face, as the messenger's words sank in like arrows, his vast herds, symbols of years of honest labor, God's blessing poured out, gone in a heartbeat. Faithful servants, men who had served his household loyally for decades, slaughtered without cause. Before Job could even respond, before the shock could fully grip his heart, another messenger staggered in right behind the first, still speaking over the fading echo of the first report. The interruptions came relentlessly, wave after wave, as if calamity itself refused to give him a single moment to breathe. But that first messenger's arrival marked the beginning of the end of everything Job had known. The Sabaeans, nomadic raiders from the southern deserts, fierce traders turned thieves. When opportunity had struck the opening blow in Satan's permitted assault. They didn't just steal, they destroyed, leaving only one survivor to carry the news, ensuring Job would hear every crushing detail. In that instant, the peaceful rhythm of Job's life shattered. The fields that once echoed with the lowing of oxen and the contented braying of donkeys now lay silent and empty. Blood stained the soil where loyal men had fallen. And Job, the blameless man God himself had praised, felt the first crack in the foundation of his world. Yet even here, in the raw shock of that first report, the greater test was only beginning. Before Job could even draw a full breath to respond, his mind still reeling from the first messenger's blood-soaked report, the image of plundered fields and slain servants burning behind his eyes, the courtyard gate crashed open again. The second messenger staggered in, his clothes scorched black and smoking, the acrid smell of charred wool and flesh clinging to him like a shroud. His hair was singed, eyebrows gone, skin blistered in angry red patches where embers had kissed him. He collapsed to his knees before Job, gasping, coughing ash from his lungs, his voice raw and cracked, as if the fire had scorched his throat too. "Master Job, while your words still hung in the air from..." First report, lightning. No, not ordinary lightning. Fire from heaven itself. It fell like judgment, a roaring pillar of flame straight down from the sky. The sheep were grazing peacefully on the eastern pastures, thousands upon thousands, the shepherds calling to one another, keeping watch as they always did. Then, without warning, the sky split open. A bolt, brighter than the sun, struck the midst of the flock. Flames exploded outward in every direction, devouring everything in seconds. The grass ignited. The animals screamed as the fire swallowed them whole. Wool burning, flesh melting. The shepherds tried to run, but the blaze was too fast, too fierce. It consumed them where they stood, charred them to nothing but ash and bone. The heat was unbearable. Even from where I hid behind a distant rock, I felt my skin blister just watching. I alone escaped, barely, to bring you this horror. Job's hands trembled at his sides. The sheep, 3,000 strong, the fruit of careful breeding, the provision that fed families in funded mercy to the poor, gone in a divine-looking inferno. faithful shepherds, men who had sung psalms while tending the flocks, reduced to cinders. The smell of smoke filled the air around them now, a grim perfume of loss. Job opened his mouth, perhaps to speak, perhaps to groan, but the words never came. The third messenger burst through the same gate, barely breathing, lungs heaving like bellows. Dust coated him. From head to toe, his tunic ripped by thorns and blades, fresh blood seeping from a gash across his arm. His eyes were wild, haunted by what he had fled. He dropped beside the second man, clutching his side as if a sword still pierced him. "Master," while this one still spoke, "the Chaldeans, raiders from the north, 3 organized bands, coordinated like wolves circling prey. They struck the camel herds all at once, from 3 directions, no chance to flee, no time to rally. The camels, 3,000 of them, swift and valuable, scattered in panic as the raiders drove them off with shouts and spears. The servants fought bravely, spears clashed, blood flowed, but the Chaldeans were merciless. They cut them down, every last one, swords rising and falling until the ground ran red. I crawled under a fallen camel, played dead amid the bodies until the raiders rode away with their prize. I alone escaped, to tell you, your camels are gone, your men are dead." Job swayed on his feet. The camels, his long-distance wealth, the caravans that brought trade and news from distant lands, stolen. More servants, loyal men who had journeyed with him for years, slaughtered in the dust. The rapid-fire blows landed like hammer strikes. Oxen and donkeys plundered by Sabians from the south, sheep incinerated by heavenly fire, camels raided by Chaldeans from the north, wealth stripped from every compass point, no corner of his empire untouched. The courtyard fell into a stunned hush, broken only by the ragged breathing of the 3 survivors. Job's face was ashen, his eyes distant, as though staring into an abyss opening beneath him. Then came the 4th. He did not burst in running. He walked, slowly, mechanically, his steps heavy, as if carrying the weight of the world. His face was ghostly pale beneath layers of dust and tear-streaked grime. His eyes were hollow, red-rimmed, staring at nothing. Blood matted his hair from a head wound. His hands shook uncontrollably. When he reached Job, he fell to his knees, not in exhaustion, but in surrender to grief too vast for words. He tried to speak once. His lips moved, but no sound came. He swallowed, tried. Again, his voice emerged as a broken whisper, cracking on every syllable. "Master Job, while the 3rd one was still speaking, your sons, your daughters, they were feasting together at your oldest son's house, laughing, eating, drinking wine as they so loved to do, celebrating life, family, joy." He paused, chest heaving with silent sobs. Then a great wind, a monstrous wind roared in from the wilderness, like nothing I've ever heard. It howled like a living thing, furious, unstoppable. It struck the 4 corners of the house at once. The walls buckled, the roof caved in, timbers snapped like twigs. The entire house collapsed in an instant, crushing them beneath stone and wood and dust. They had no chance, no cry, nothing. All 10, your precious children, gone, buried in the ruins. I was outside, tending the gate, thrown clear by the force. I alone escaped to tell you they are all dead, every one of them. Family extinguished. The blows came so relentlessly, one messenger's words overlapping the next, that Job had no moment to process, no breath to grieve before the next hammer fell. Yet in that crushing silence, as the reality settled like lead in his chest, Job did not curse, he did not rage at heaven, not yet. What he did next would echo through millennia. Silence. Then soft, broken music. In that single hour, Job lost his entire fortune and all 10 of his children. Everything a man lives for, gone. He stood up slowly. He tore his robe. He shaved his head in mourning. Then he fell to the ground and worshipped. Through choking sobs, he said, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." In all this, Job did not sin. He did not blame God. Music rises again, darker. Satan returned to the heavenly court, furious. Skin for skin, he snarled. A man will give up everything to save his own life, but strike his bone and his flesh, and he will curse you to your face. God answered, "He is in your hand, but spare his life." So Satan struck. Painful, oozing sores broke out all over Job's body, from the soles of his feet to the crown of his head. The agony was beyond description. He sat among the ashes outside the city,
Scraping himself with a piece of broken pottery, trying to find even 1 second of relief. His wife, watching the man she loved waste away, finally broke. "Are you still holding on to your integrity? Curse God and die." Job looked at her with eyes full of sorrow and love. "You speak as one of the foolish women speaks. Shall we accept good from God and not accept trouble?" Even in the fire, Job did not sin with his lips. Word of his suffering spread like wildfire. 3 of his closest friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, came to comfort him. When they saw him from a distance, they barely recognized the man. They wept loudly, tore their robes, threw dust on their heads, and sat on the ground with him in complete silence for 7 days and 7 nights, because they saw how great his pain was. Finally, Job opened his mouth and cursed the day he was born. "Why did I not perish at birth? Why did the knees receive me? Why did the breasts that I might nurse? For now I would be lying down in peace. I would be asleep and at rest." That was when the accusations began. Eliphaz, the oldest and most respected, spoke first. "Think about it, Job. Who that was innocent ever perished? Those who plow iniquity and sow trouble reap the same. God does not punish the blameless." Job's heart shattered. His own friend was saying he must be guilty of some secret sin. Then Bildad spoke, cold and logical. "If your children died, they must have sinned. If you will seek God and be pure, surely He will restore you." Job answered through tears, "How can a mortal be righteous before God? He crushes me with a tempest and multiplies my wounds without cause." Then Zophar, the harshest, almost shouted, "Your babbling must be answered. God is exacting less than your guilt deserves. Repent, and prosperity will return." Round after round they argued, 3 times each.
each accusation more painful than the last.
Each time Job defended his innocence with greater desperation, yet never cursed God. At one breathtaking moment, in the middle of his agony, Job lifted his voice and declared something that still gives believers chills today. "I know that my Redeemer lives, and at the last he will stand upon the earth. And after my skin has been destroyed, yet in my flesh I will see God. I myself will see him with my own eyes, and my heart yearns within me." The three friends fell silent at last. They had no more to say. But someone else had been listening the entire time. If this story is stirring something deep in your spirit right now, hit that like button. It helps this message reach others who are walking through their own fire. And if you're not already, subscribe and turn on the bell, because we're telling more raw, powerful Bible stories like this every week. A young man named Elihu had waited respectfully while the older men spoke, but now fire burned inside him. He was angry at Job for justifying himself instead of God, and angry at the three friends for condemning a righteous man and making God look unjust. Elihu spoke with fresh passion. "I am young, and you are old, but it is the spirit in a man, the breath of the Almighty, that gives understanding. God is greater than any human. He speaks in many ways, through dreams, through suffering, through discipline, to turn us back to Him. God does not pervert justice." Elihu's words prepared the way for the moment everyone had been waiting for. Suddenly, the wind began to howl. Dark clouds gathered at impossible speed. Lightning cracked across the sky. Thunder rolled like the voice of eternity. And out of the whirlwind, God Himself spoke. "Who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge? Prepare yourself like a man. I will question you, and you shall answer me." Then came the most majestic, humbling speech in all of Scripture. "Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who determined its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it? When the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy." God took Job on a breathtaking tour of creation. The sea and its boundaries, the dawn in its place, the storehouses of snow and hail, the wild donkey running free, the ostrich laughing at the horse charging into battle, the eagle soaring at his command, and finally, the mighty behemoth and untamable Leviathan. With every question, Job grew smaller, and God grew infinitely greater. Job covered his mouth. "I am unworthy. What can I answer you? I lay my hand over my mouth. I spoke once, but I will say no more." But God wasn't finished. He spoke again, even more powerfully. And when the voice of the Almighty finally fell silent, Job was on his face in the dust, tears streaming. Broken, reverent. "I know that you can do all things. No purpose of yours can be thwarted. My ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you. Therefore I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes." Then God turned to the three friends, and His voice thundered with anger. "I am angry with you, Eliphaz, and with you too. You have not spoken of me what is right, as my servant Job has. Now go to my servant Job, offer a burnt offering, and Job will pray for you. For him I will accept." The very men who had condemned Job now needed Job's prayers. And Job, despite everything, prayed for them. God accepted his prayer. Then the restoration began. The Lord restored Job's fortunes and doubled them. 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 yoke of oxen,
1,000 donkeys. His brothers, sisters, and old friends came back, bringing gifts of silver and gold. But the greatest treasure came next. God gave Job 7 more sons and 3 more daughters. Their names were Jemima, Kezia, and Karen Happuch, beautiful container of eye paint. And in a culture where daughters rarely inherited, God gave these 3 daughters an inheritance equal to their brothers. He honored them. He healed the family. Job lived another 140 years. He saw his children, his grandchildren, and his great-grandchildren, 4 generations.
He died old and full of years, satisfied in the presence of the God he had trusted when everything screamed to stop. So what does the life of Job teach us today? Suffering is not always punishment. Sometimes the most righteous people suffer the most. The enemy attacked Job precisely because he was so faithful. You may never get the why. God never explained the heavenly conversation to Job, but he gave Job something better, himself. True faith is not based on blessings. When every blessing was stripped away, Job still worshipped. God is not small enough to fit in our neat little formulas.
The friends thought they had God figured out. They were wrong. God is bigger, wiser, and more loving than we can imagine. You are allowed to be honest with God. Job screamed, questioned, wept, and raged, and God called him my servant more than ever. Restoration is real. Your story does not end in the ashes. God is still writing. Music soft, warm. If this story is stirring something deep in your spirit right now, hit that like button. It helps this message reach others who are walking through their own fire. And if you're not already, subscribe and turn on the bell, because we're telling more raw, powerful Bible stories like this every week. Now as we close, maybe you're in the ashes right now. Maybe you've lost more than you ever thought you could bear. Hear this. The same God who allowed Job to be tested is the same God who restored him. The same God who spoke from the whirlwind is the same God who sees you right now. And the same Redeemer who lives, the one Job looked forward to, is the one who died for you and rose again. Your Redeemer lives. Hold on, he is not finished with your story. Thank you for watching. If this encouraged you, please share it with someone who needs to hear that faith can survive even this. Drop a comment. What part of Job's story touched you the most? See you in the next story. God bless you, and remember, He is trustworthy even when you can't see it yet.